Now we will talk about the second important ethical dilemma that civil servants or any professional often faces. We call that as whistleblowing. Whistleblowing. So whistleblowing is the second important ethical dilemma. First dilemma we had talked about earlier, that was conflict of interest. Now, as I told you earlier, that in conflict of interest, there were direct questions have been asked in the UPSC exam. About this, there is no direct question as yet. But I do believe that sometimes in the future, near future, they can ask a question on that also. What is the meaning of the whistleblowing? Or write a short note on whistleblowing or something like that. So it's a very pertinent question from our, you can say, future exam, immediate future, near future and all. But more importantly, we will say here that about whistleblowing. In the case of whistleblowing, every year they ask a few questions. A few questions you can say in the case study where we can use the idea of the whistleblowing to answer that question. What is that whistleblowing? Now, if we look at simple definition of whistleblowing, then we often say that when the organization, suppose you are working in an organization, when the organization or someone else in the organization does something unethical, and when somebody from within the organization brings that to light to the outside world, then we say that this person is blowing the whistle. I repeat here, when the organization itself or somebody else in the organization does something unethical, and when somebody from within the organization tells the outside world about this unethical conduct, then this situation is called the whistleblowing. Now, what does that definition mean? Suppose this is the organization, and suppose you are working in that organization, you are A again. You are not doing anything wrong. You are a nice person, you are an ethical person, not doing anything wrong. But suppose, for example, this organization itself does something wrong as a policy. Sometimes it happens that organization itself, as a policy, maybe internal, implicit policy, they do something wrong. This is what happened in Satyam. You must be aware of Satyam scam. What happened in Satyam? In Satyam, you know that the organization company itself has started fuzzing their own account book in order to inflate the share price in the market. That became such a big scam, perhaps the biggest corporate scam in India. Enron was also similar thing again. So in Enron case also in America, you know that the internal, you can say, policy led to the inflation of the share market price, and then that created so much of trouble for so many people at that time. So sometimes organization itself does something wrong, or sometimes somebody else in the organization, your colleague, your senior, somebody else is doing something wrong in the organization, and then after you tell the people outside that yes, in my organization something unethical is happening, then you are blowing the whistle. So there are two important criteria, two important components are there in this case. First important thing is that in this case, well, the person himself does not do anything wrong. He is aware that some wrong is happening in that case, number one. And number two, that somebody from within the organization tells the outsider that something wrong is happening, then only it will be defined as a whistleblowing. Somebody from within the organization telling somebody outside the organization will be the definition of a whistleblowing. Now, if you look at philosophy, ethical idea, ethical theory and all, then we often say that the obligation of whistleblowing is based on one very important ethical philosophy, ethical theory that we will discuss in our class called existentialism. Existentialism is one important theory of ethics that tells us that we are responsible for even the wrong done by somebody else. Every other theory of ethics, we'll discuss all these theories in our class, that how can we understand what is ethical and what is not. So every other ethical theory tells us that we are responsible only for our own action. So in order to become ethical, I must ensure that I do not do anything wrong. But I'm not responsible for the unethical action of somebody else. If somebody else is doing something wrong, it's none of my business. This is what normally people believe. But existentialism is one important theory that tells us that no, we are responsible not only for our unethical actions, we are responsible for the unethical actions of others as well. Why so? We'll discuss that in the class again, when we'll discuss the existentialism as an important theory of ethics later. So that is the important thing, that in this case you are not doing anything wrong, but can you say that you are not responsible? If you are aware that wrong is happening, then do you think that you are responsible in that case? Well, we say here in ethics again, you are responsible even in that case. So you have to take an action. You cannot simply say it's none of my business. Why should I bother about it? It's none of my concern. I'm not doing anything wrong. But here you will say that no, if you don't do anything, then also you are responsible for that wrong. There is some moral responsibility will be there on you in that case as well. It's a very important thing that we need to understand about ethics. Because whenever we talk about ethics, then we often talk about two types of wrong, two types of evil actions. We often call that as evil of action. So when you do something wrong, then you are guilty of the evil of action. You are doing evil act yourself. So in this case, we'll say that these people are responsible for the evil of action. They are doing something which is unethical, which is wrong, which is evil. There is one important type of evil that we often recognize in the world. But there is other type of evil also that we normally do not recognize, and that is a big problem in ethics that we have to take into consideration. What is that? We often call that as evil of inaction. We often call that as evil of inaction. So if you don't do anything, then you will be guilty of the evil of inaction in that case. Inaction in ethics is as big a wrong as action. So if you are doing the wrong thing, then you are an evil person, you are a bad person. But if you are not doing something when wrong happens in front of you, then you are as much a part of that wrong as that person who is doing the wrong himself. So we have to take the responsibility that if I know that something is wrong is happening, then there is a responsibility on me to take some action. If you recognize that, then whistleblowing, you can understand, is an important obligation for you. You know, it's a very important thing to understand. Well, there's a beautiful quotation, I hope that you must have heard about that. Somebody had said that the world is bad not because some people are wrong. World is bad mainly because the so-called good people are always silent. Silence of good people is a bigger evil in ethics than wrong. Wrong people are very few in numbers. Most of us are good people. But problem with us is that we don't confront the wrong people. We don't try to you can say fight with the wrong people, thinking that it's none of my business. Why should I bother about it? No, we have to bother about it. Ethics does not permit neutrality. You cannot be neutral in ethics. Either you are with the side of the right or you are with the side of the wrong. You cannot be outside. You cannot be saying, I'm not, this is not none of my business. Everybody is. The moment you know that wrong is happening, it is your business. If you don't know about it, you can't do anything else. But if you know that wrong is happening, then you have to take action. And if you realize that, this is what we call whistleblowing. So philosophical, we'll discuss about that philosophical idea in some later class, that what puts responsibility on us, under what condition we are responsible for our actions. We'll talk about that in some later class. Well, now, then we often say that obligation of whistleblowing is based on this recognition that, or before that, suppose you are working in any organization. Now, whenever we work in an organization, then we have three important duties. We have three important obligations. What are they? First obligation we have is towards the larger, you can say, society. Larger society or public. So of course, as I told you that when we are working in a profession, then our work influences the life of other people in a significant manner. They are the people towards which we have certain duty. We have certain obligation. So in a way we can see that whenever we work in a professional organization, then we have three obligations on us. Three obligations. First obligation is the obligation towards the larger society or general public. Second obligation that we have is about our profession. So of course, when we are working in a profession, you are a civil servant, then your profession gives you lots of power. So you have duty towards your profession, that this power must not be misutilized. If you are a doctor, then well, your profession gives you lots of power again. So patient tells you, puts himself at your mercy. When a patient comes to you as a, so it's your duty to ensure that yes, you are doing the following the ethical principles in that case. You have the professional obligation towards your profession. And third obligation we have is towards the organization or towards your employer or your colleagues. organization or your employer or your colleague. So, for example, if you are a doctor, then you have an obligation towards the patient who comes to you. You have the obligation towards the medical profession, that Hippocratic oath that you have taken, and you have the obligation towards your hospital. Suppose, for example, you are working in Apollo, then you have obligation towards the Apollo hospital, that you must ensure that you do not harm the Apollo hospital's interest again. Of course, they are giving you a job. So we have these three obligations whenever we work in any organization, in any professional system. Now, life will be very good when all these three obligations are consistent together, but problem is that life is not so good all the time. Sometimes it may be possible that there may be a conflict between these three obligations. When there is a conflict between these three obligations, then we believe here that this obligation is very important, no doubt about that. You must be loyal to your organization, your colleagues, your seniors, your employer, but your obligation towards these two people is much more powerful than, much more important than this one. So it is possible, it is okay, it is desirable, and it is demanded, it is required, it is necessary that you have to sometimes go against your organization for the sake of some larger public interest. If you do so, then you are blowing the whistle. So, whistleblowing is based on this recognition that our duty towards the larger public and our own profession is more important than our duty towards the organization that we are working for. So, this is what is the ultimate basis of whistleblowing as an ethical obligation. Let's take a few examples where you can understand how whistleblowing can be actually used by us. I'll give you two examples here. And both of these examples that I am going to talk about here has been asked in the UPSC exam. So both of these questions are actually real case study asked in the UPSC exam a few years ago. So let us see how we can understand these case study from this point of view. Now, first case study is that suppose you are an engineer. You are posted in the PWD department of your city. After being posted there, one day you are going for a routine inspection of a flyover that is being constructed by a private contractor, and the contract had been given by your organization PWD. So you go there for routine inspection. You find that 90% of the work has been done. The flyover is almost complete and it is about to be finished. The last 10% work, that is finishing work, is being done. Now, on the routine inspection, you find out that while making this flyover, some substandard material have been used. Some substandard materials have been used in that. If this flyover continues like that, then ultimately it may put the life of the people at risk. Now, you as a conscientious, an ethical engineer again, you go to your senior and you tell your senior, sir, something wrong is happening in this case, we should not allow that to happen. Your boss tells you, keep quiet, don't worry about it. There is lots of problem that we have. First problem is that 90% of the work is complete. So right now, if you take action now, then it will create a big problem. What is that? The whole flyover has to be destroyed and it has to be remade. So that will have a lots of, can say, resource will be lost in that. We don't have that much of resource. We don't have that much of money. So it is too late now to take an action. Second problem is that there is a huge public pressure because this flyover, construction of this flyover is creating a huge traffic jam. So there is a huge public pressure to complete the flyover as soon as possible. So if you take action now, then it will create a big problem again in the public order. There is a third problem also, that election is coming up, and there is a political pressure from the minister that the minister wants the flyover to be completed before the election so that he can portray that as one of his achievement in the next election. So your boss tells you that there is a financial pressure, there is a public pressure, and there is a political pressure. So now it is too late. We cannot take an action. So keep quiet, don't do anything. But you are worried. You go to your senior also. Now he also tells you the same thing. Don't worry about it. Let it happen, whatever is happening. You go to your senior also, and then senior also. Nobody is willing to take any action. Now the question is that what is it that you should do? Now this can be a potential case of whistleblowing. Why so? Because now there is a conflict between your duty as a professional engineer and your duty towards the public who are going to use that flyover, and your duty towards your employer, your senior, maybe in this case colleagues. So in this case, your colleagues are asking you to do something else, but your professional duty as an engineer tells you that no, you should not do that. You should not allow that to happen because this flyover is against the basic tenet, basic philosophy, basic, you can say, ethical principle of engineering profession, that safety of the people should not be compromised. In this case, what you should do? So that can be a potential case of conflict of interest here. So That is one thing, one case. I'll talk about that case shortly further. Now there is a second question also, interesting question about the similar thing again. That was asked in the UPSC exam a few years ago. Now the question here is that, suppose there is a lady who is working in a chemical factory, and in this chemical factory some chemical waste is, you can say, discarded, and that is normally thrown into the nearby river that pollutes the water, and this river flows through a nearby village where the people in that village use the water of that river as a drinking water. Now this is putting the life of a large number of people in that village, health and life of the people in that village, at risk. Now when this lady comes to know about this event, then she is worried. Now she goes to her senior and tells them that, sir, it is wrong, that we should not be, we as an ethical organization, we should not be doing that. So let us stop doing this. But the senior tells us, shut up, do your work. You are a clerk, your job is to simply do your job. Don't worry about these things, these are the management issues. Don't interfere into that. Now she goes to other senior also, and the senior also, boss also, everybody, but nobody is willing to take action. Everybody snubs her. That is none of your business. You are a clerk, do your job. It's a management question. Leave that to the management. Now in this case, what she should do? Here also you can see that it can be a potential case of civil, you can say the whistleblowing. So in this case you see that her obligation towards the larger society, of course we are the ethical people and we have duty towards the people who are going to be affected by our action. So she has duty towards those villagers also whose life should not be at risk because of this organization, of course as a professional, but her senior tells us her to keep quiet. There is a conflict between these two value and this value. What should she do? So that can also be a potential case of conflict of interest. So in any such cases, again, you should think of whistleblowing as a possible solution to your dilemma. But in all these cases, again, whistleblowing becomes important only and only when three important conditions are met. So in all these cases, you should not blow the whistle in the first instance itself. You must check whether these three important conditions are met or not. If these three important conditions are met, then we will say whistleblowing becomes an important obligation. Otherwise, whistleblowing should not be done. What are these three important conditions? So, three conditions for whistleblowing. These three. So in every question when whistleblowing is a possible solution, you should check these three conditions. If they are met, then whistleblowing is important. If they are not met, whistleblowing should not be done. What are these three conditions? First condition is that ethical wrongdoing is being done here. Ethical wrongdoing, the public harm, is serious in nature. Public harm is serious in nature and oblique, or it will continue, and or it will continue if it is not made public. So that is the first important, how serious the problem is. If the problem is small, then whistleblowing is wrong, because if you start blowing whistle for every small problem, then you will never get a job. Well, everywhere some small wrong happen that we can possibly ignore. So, or find other solution also rather than whistleblowing. So, if the small problem is there, then try to find better solutions inside the organization other than whistleblowing in that case. How serious the problem is. So, that is the first important check that we have to ensure. So, both the case that we have discussed in our class here, this condition appears to have been met. Why so? Let's take that engineering case. Now, if this, you can say, while making a flyover, if some substandard material has been used, then will it not put the life of the people at risk if the flyover is continued to be made again? So then maybe you can say breakage and after. It is interesting that on the same year when they had asked this question, a similar event has actually happened in Kolkata. In Kolkata that year, in February, March, a flyover had collapsed, and under construction flyover had collapsed, and 26 people had died in that. And a few months later, they had asked this question in the UPSC exam. So they often ask questions from the current affairs also. Try to put that in the form of an ethical dilemma. So it is going to, so you can, in your answer, you can actually write that it is a serious question. It can possibly put the life of the people at risk, and well, people may die because of that. Death of the people is a serious matter. So as an engineer, it is the violation of the most basic principle of engineering profession, that is the safety. that it is actually compromising the safety of the people who are going to use that flyover in the future. So first condition appears to have been met in this case. In the second case also that we have discussed, the first condition is something that appears to have been met here also. What is that? That in that chemical factory, if the chemical waste is being disposed in the river, then it is actually harming the life and health of the peoples in a significant manner. It is a serious question. So that is the first important thing that you have to meet. In this case, both of these cases, it appears to have been met. Then after, we should use the second important condition. Second condition is that the professional, the person who is planning to blow the whistle, the professional must, can say, first of all, exhaust every internal reasonable procedures of solving the problem from within the organization. That's very important, because you know that every professional organization has some internal mechanism to solve the ethical problem. That is the meaning of the term professional organization. That professional organization often face ethical problem, and there is internal mechanism through which ethical problem can be actually handled. So if you find some problem, then try to find a solution within the organization. If you can solve it within the organization, then whistleblowing is wrong. We should not do that. Try to solve the problem within the organization. Try to use the internal mechanism. Can you use that? Suppose you try to do everything and ultimately nothing is working, then at the last resort, whistleblowing can be done. So idea here is that whistleblowing can be done, should be done only as the last resort. Only as last resort, not as a first opportunity. Not as the first opportunity. So idea here is that the moment you find something wrong happening, you simply go to the media and tell the world that something wrong is happening in my organization. That is unethical. You shouldn't do that. Try to find a solution within the organization first of all. But if nothing is working, then as a last resort, you can use whistleblowing as your last choice. It should be last choice, not the first opportunity. So in the both question that we have talked about earlier, this condition also appears to have been met. Why so? That engineer, he did not blow the whistle first of all. He went to his senior, tried to solve the problem. His senior did not listen to him. He went to his own senior, and then also. He was not able to find solution anywhere. Nothing was working. Then ultimately, as a conscientious and ethical engineer, it was his duty to perhaps blow the whistle in that case. Same was the case with that lady also in the chemical factory. That she also first of all tried to find a solution by going to the seniors. In order to ensure that this problem can be handled, this problem can be, you can say, this chemical waste should not be disposed in the river. Nothing was working. So as last resort, she can use that also. So that is the second important condition. In both the cases, the second condition also appears to have been met. But then also whistleblowing is wrong unless and until you fulfill the third condition, third criteria. What is that third condition? Third condition is that the professional who is planning to blow the whistle must have enough evidence. Must have enough evidence to make a plausible case in the public. That's very important. It is important because, you know, whistleblowing is not an easy thing to do. Whistleblowing is very, very difficult. Why it is difficult? Because whistleblowing normally is considered as a very problematic thing in most of the organization. Think of it. It's a very important thing to understand. Why so? Because whenever we join any organization, then we always take an oath of loyalty. We always take an oath of loyalty, that explicitly or implicitly, we always take an oath of loyalty to our organization, that we will remain loyal to our organization. We will not do something that harms the interest of my organization. Of course. So as a doctor, if you join the Apollo Hospital, then it is your duty to ensure that, well, your work does not harm the Apollo Hospital, its reputation, its work, or everything, because they are your employer. They are giving you the job, your career. So we take an oath of loyalty. But when you blow the whistle, then you violate this oath of loyalty. So that's a very important thing that we need to understand, that this oath of loyalty is being violated by the whistleblowing. Now, because of that reason, you know that whistleblowers are often considered as disloyal, or sometimes even as traitor. They are often considered as disloyal people or traitors. Again, they have gone against their own organization. You know, in Hindi, for example, as we say again, you must have heard about that. Ghar ka bhedi lanka dhaye. So they are like Vibhishan again. In Ramayana, if you understand, Vibhishan was a whistleblower. So he was the person, he was in the side of the wrong initially, but when ultimately he decided no, he has to go to the other side again, and then after he blew the whistle. Had he not defected, then perhaps Ram would not have been able to kill Ravan in that case. So Vibhishan was a whistleblower. But is he considered as a good person again in our mythology? Of course not. We often call it Ghar ka Bhedi type of thing. We often consider him as more derisively rather than admiringly. So even if he took the side of the right at the end of it, but normally he is not admired that much, because he was a traitor in that case. He was a disloyal person. He went against his own brother, his own family. So that was the track that he always had to bear. No, I have not seen any Hindu naming their children as Vibhishan. So naming their children, Ram is very common name. Everything else is common, but Vibhishan is the name that you will never find there. So that is the problem with that case. So these people are like Vibhishan again. They are the people who are the disloyal, they are the traitors. So once you blow the whistle again, then you will be treated as a traitor, maybe disloyal. People will look down upon you that he is you can say different from us. He is not like us. So because of that, you know that the whistleblowers often face many types of problems. First problem that they face is of course the financial problem. They might be fired from their job. Of course, we are going against the organization. Who's the organization will like to have you in that case? So you may be fired from your job. You may find it difficult to get a second job also, because every other organization will become a bit apprehensive about you, that if you find something wrong here, then you can blow the whistle and you will put all of us at risk. Why to take a risk by hiring you? You will find it difficult to get a job in that case. So it will create financial troubles for you. Not only that, it will create more psychological problem also. Psychological problems, like you can say you will feel isolated, alienated or alienated in your organization. Nobody will like to talk to you. Nobody will like to interact with you. Nobody will try to relate with you again in that case, because everybody will think that you are a whistleblower, you are a disloyal person, you are a traitor in that case. So it will create a lot of psychological burden on you. You will feel lonely in that case again. And more importantly, sometimes there can be physical threat also. There can be some physical threat also on you again, that people may try to harm, because you are going against your organization. They are powerful people, so they may try to harm you, so you or your family also. So you are putting yourself and your family at some physical threat of physical violence as well. Many whistleblowers have been killed by the powerful people. So you are putting risk again. So whistleblowing is not an easy thing. It will create lots of problem. Because of this reason, we say that the third point is important. Because once you blow the whistle, nobody is going to help you. It is your duty now to prove to the world that, well, something wrong is happening, and this wrong I have evidence for that. So if you make an accusation and you are not able to prove that, then your life will be ruined after that. Nobody will give you a job. You will feel yourself completely desolate, isolated in that case. So it's a very difficult thing. So before you blow the whistle, you must have enough evidence in your hand so that you can actually make a plausible case in the public. I accuse and I have evidence for that. Only by showing the evidence you can actually redeem yourself. You can actually, well, regain your loyalty, that image of loyalty again. No, you are an ethical person. You are going against your organization not because you are disloyal, but because you are extra ethical. You are ethical in your standard, in your doubt, you can say in your behavior and all. So you must have enough evidence before that. It will be your duty. Nobody is going to help you. It will be your duty to prove to the world that it is going to, wrong is happening again. So in that case also, that the flyover engineer wala case also, you see that engineer, in your answer you can write there that before we can blow the whistle, I will ensure that as an engineer I have enough documentary evidence for that. So that evidence must be collected before you can actually decide to blow the whistle. Otherwise it may be a problematic thing. The same with that lady also, that before this lady tries to blow the whistle outside, then before that she must gather enough documentary evidence that yes, there is a real possibility of harm to the people. It is actually fact that the chemical waste is being disposed in the river, and there should be evidence for that. So if these three conditions are met, then we say whistleblowing becomes an ethical obligation. Then after, the person must blow the whistle. Ethics requires us to take the pain and also at that cost also to blow the whistle. So that is how we can say blowing whistle can be an ethical obligation, and under these three conditions, whistleblowing can become necessary. That we must always do that. So that is how we can say we can solve this problem of whistleblowing.